A few summers ago, I decided to sit down and play the 1987 NES release of Punch-Out, which was available in the Wii U shop. The first few opponents weren't too challenging, but the game does get statistically difficult towards the end, much like most games released in the same time. But I toughed it out, and a few broken controllers later, I made it to Mike Tyson, the final boss. Only it's Mr. Dream now because Nintendo's license expired. Anyways, the match starts with Mr. Dream, or Mike Tyson, and this guy just kicks your shit in. It's like David and Goliath, only that Goliath moves like a fucking jungle cat. He's zipping with his fists like boom, bam, and you're over here shitting your pants like, oh no. Now it's easy to see that Mr. Dream attacks in a pattern, but it doesn't do much good to realize that when one punch is enough to wipe out your health bar. Guy's got bazookas for arms, apparently.
That's a thick-ass bar!
So after losing, which, let's be honest with ourselves, you will, you either quit and leave, like your dad, or you look up a guide online how to beat him. Now the guides all kind of recommend the same thing, looking out for the patterns and understanding how Mr. Dream is programmed. That's nice and all, but it doesn't do shit for you when you're having difficulty dodging his punches in the first place. So regardless of how many guides I read, I still got my butt scrambled like eggs. That is until one day, you know when you sit down to play a game and you see the code? You can see punches before they're actually thrown, like you got the fucking Sharingan or something. Every punch he threw, I was like whoosh, and every opening I smacked him right in his ugly face. Thanks to the countless trials and errors I went through, I had a thorough understanding of how Mr. Dream worked. I understood the timing of Mr. Dream's punches and how I can safely avoid them while chipping away at his health. That is, until I finally took down the nightmare that had been haunting me for weeks. Beating Mr. Dream is one of the best moments I've had playing a video game. Now, beating a game can be a pretty fulfilling moment, especially if you're playing something that's handed your ass on a silver platter for the last few weeks. And especially in today where the average person's attention span is the same as a goldfish. Getting to the end of any game requires more dedication than the average person can afford, not to mention work and life and school and dating and anime. You get it. That's why a lot of these days we get games like Overwatch, Among Us, Fortnite, Power Wash Simulator. This stuff is just super easy and repeatable. Just look at this dirt, get what's coming to it. Take that, you little bitch. So when we choose to play a narrative-driven game from start to finish, the game has the hefty job of convincing us to keep playing it. They need us to be invested in their story and their world. And if you're gonna play to the end, that ending better be worth it, because if not... Now, games can end in a lot of different ways. You can have a specific challenge you need to complete, a mission to be sent on, or my personal favorite, the Punch-Out stuff at the beginning making more sense now. I want an opponent stacked like freaking pancakes standing in front of me ready to throw fists. Now, there's a lot of ways and reasons final bosses can be placed at the end of a journey. Maybe this guy's just been a freaking pain to you all game and you want to have a dick-sized competition to see who's truly stronger. Maybe they're trying to hide their dirty laundry and you're just the housekeeper for the job. Maybe it's just a gross mess of tentacles that's chased you around all game and you're taking your final stand. God, those fucking suck. Needless to say, when a final boss appears in a video game, they should be a big deal, both for the narrative and gameplay elements. So let's talk about both these elements and how a boss can be good or bad in both ways. You can have a great boss as far as narrative is concerned, but fails to impress you with the gameplay challenge. You could have a boss that bored the mashed potatoes out of you, and you don't understand what the writers were thinking when they put this bland piece of medium rare chicken in a game. And then everything in between. Both bad, both good, you get it. When I think of a narratively great boss, I can't help but think of my mom during high school. But as far as video games are concerned, Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker is a great example of how to set up a boss battle. Now, don't get me wrong, I could talk for hours about what this game does right, because it does do things right. Yeah. But we're here to talk about the big ol' head honcho, Mr. Don Alcadorf himself. For anyone even slightly familiar with The Legend of Zelda, even if Zelda's hardly fucking in it, you would know that it's always a tale of how Link beats Ganon's orange-crusted face game after game after game after game, with an exception here and there. By the end of the game, you've done all the generic go here and collect the recipe ingredients for grandma's apple pie, aka the Triforce junk. You might have even done it twice, which you do in this particular game. After you do all the generic nonsense, you'll find yourself face to face in front of Ganondorf. For the last time. You see him a few times, but this one is for all the beans. Ganon finally reveals what he's after, and it's not too hard to sympathize with the guy. Don't get me wrong, he wants to restore Hyrule just so he can rule it with an iron fist, but damn, did Ganon actually have it tough. He explains that the land he came from, Gerudo, is one that suffers greatly from the elements, and death is a common occurrence. Ganon sought to conquer Hyrule because he wanted the safe living conditions Hyrule's land had to offer for him and his people. Only in his quest to conquer Hyrule, his race was... wiped out, frozen in time, same difference. By the goddesses that Link more or less represents. He thematically does this by mentioning the death and misery the wind brought his land, while the wind brought Hyrule a different Wind. Ganon is obsessed with bringing back his people and returning Hyrule to its former state. Even before he claims victory, he says he won't kill Link. He knows mercy, guys! Or maybe he just doesn't care. I don't know. Obviously not the same staple villain Ganon who just wants to punch babies in their face and tells you they're too busy to hang, when in reality, he's just taking a nap. He's more gray, and the line is more blurred as to whether he's right or wrong. Now, towards the final sequence, King Boat Daddy steals Ganon's wish, making it impossible for Ganon to see his dream come true. So he suffers a mental breakdown and proceeds to charge at you and your girl. Boom! Final boss. Now, once you beat Ganon, despite Zelda's shitty AI, he utters his final words. The wind. It is blowing on these nuts.
Johnny!
I don't think I've ever felt how cornered my enemy was as I did in Wind Waker. It felt like I was fighting a wild, vicious animal that was backed into a corner and ready to die, trying to claw my eyes out. Kind of leaves you feeling reluctant to fight him. I mean, you have to though. Dude's trying to stab you. A game has ultimately won if they get you to care about their characters, and Wind Waker accomplishes this with flying colors. Now, let's talk about gameplay, and I bet some of you know where this is going. Oh, you do, don't you? Don't lie. That's right. How can I talk about final boss gameplay without talking about the Souls series? The Souls games are referenced a buttload when people talk about standards of excellence to reach for. And okay, maybe my example will be a little less conventional with the Souls series. No, it's not 1, nor 2, nor 3. I'm talking about Bloodborne, the least Souls game because it doesn't even have the word Souls in it. I mean, besides Sekiro. Bloodborne's final boss, not that DLC shit, I haven't beaten that. I'm talking about Gehrman, the bitch hunter. I think if it's one thing Souls games does really well, it's testing your practiced ability to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and die. A lot. Gehrman was a freaking bitch and a half to beat, man. I don't care what all you Souls elitists think.
Oh, it's not difficult at all once you learn his attack animations and get good.
Goddamn! Now, Bloodborne has pretty simple controls. You use R1 to attack, R2 to strong attack, triangle to heal, circle to dodge, square to use item, L1 to change weapon form, L2 to attack with your second hand, hold your attack button to charge your attack. Okay, maybe it's not as simple as Mario. It doesn't take a long time to become familiar with what does what, but it does take time to figure out how to best use these in-game. Your attacks in Bloodborne are pretty committal. Not as committal as, say, Monster Hunter, but enough where if you choose to attack and realize your enemy was winding up a big tear your ass a new one move, well, be prepared for it to hurt. These games test your understanding of the core mechanics from start to finish. Some will test your reflexes and how fast you can evade. Others will test your timing, knowing when to land hits and when to back off. Others will test your patience after you died for the 8th fucking time. Gehrman tests everything you've learned up until that point. All you can really ask of a final boss is that it incorporates all the mechanics of a game in a challenging way, and Gehrman does that. Gehrman can be parried, which anyone online will tell you that's how you cheese him or makes him super easy, but the skill of parrying is a difficult one to master in the first place. Unless you just have a knack for these things, in which case go fuck. He's basically you with a bigger weapon that's
Fast as fuck, boy.
and he can blap you for a parry. The only thing you won't see from him is dodge spamming and healing. Could you imagine that? In this battle, you have to have a good understanding of how to dodge, when to back off, when to engage, how to play it safe. When Gehrman can be parried, learn his favorite color, when's his birthday, what underwear did he leave the house with this morning?
But Jeff, Gehrman isn't the hardest boss in Bloodborne. What about the orphan, Ludwig?
Okay, let's get something straight. I don't think Gehrman is the hardest boss this game has to offer. I think he makes a perfect final boss. See, there's a difference there. Throughout the game, different bosses will challenge you to think in new ways to overcome them. Maybe using a specific item that increases your damage or working around a gimmick. Some of these can be very difficult to grasp. Gehrman, on the other hand, just feels like an intimidating test of all the concepts you put together in the game. The challenge is bringing all those concepts together to take him down. Or you could just parry him. If you're a bitch. I think even for the people who found him easy, this boss is an insanely awesome way to wrap up the core game and does feel like a great final battle. But you know what sucks? Grinding levels and strengthening yourself only to finish the game with a final boss who dies faster than Tyler 1's controllers. It especially sucks when the story's been making them out to be this big, tough, no milk with their cereal brute. I mean, goddammit, Breath of the Wild. Before sitting down to write this, I felt like I mentally blocked out the final part of the Ganon battle. He just sits there and takes it. Maybe he'll fire a laser or two, but those things are easier to dodge than my responsibilities, which I'm doing to play this game. You just slowly make your way around Ganon, hit the glowy things a couple of times, and before you know it, you've saved Hyrule. I will admit, the first part of the battle is pretty dope, but just... Why would you finish on this? If they had just made this part feel a little bit more threatening. I mean, he looks threatening, but once you realize how easy his attacks are to evade, he feels like just a generic mob. Hell, the generic mobs actually dished it out more than Pig Ganon could. Or should we talk about how you can one-shot Colonel Autumn in Fallout 3? God damn, that was disappointing. But you know what? How can I talk about these final bosses without talking about my actual personal favorite?
Oh, God, he's so good. So good and tasty.
Sans from the genocide run of Undertale is literally everything I want in a final boss. The dialogue is perfect, the gameplay, much like a lot of the Undertale, thinks outside the box. Or better put, you bring the box with you. Like, how crazy is that? This 10+ minute fight is a great representation of everything Undertale has to offer. Not to mention, that banger OST! It's fitting that Sans is the final boss on the "you're literally killing puppies" run. He's easily one of the most likable characters, so in a playthrough where you kill his brother and all his friends, it's understandable that there are some mixed feelings about battling him. I only played the genocide run because I wanted to see an alternative ending, but I did not sign up for this. Or this. Or this. God! Honestly, there's a lot of examples of final bosses that I would have loved to use. So let's get it out of my system. Isn't it cool how in Kingdom Hearts 2 you're chipping away at Xemnas' castle until it's just you and him and Riku in a weird room and then lasers? Remember how in Sonic Adventure Battle 2 you're battling a giant lizard in space, and while controlling Sonic and Shadow is a goddamn nightmare? Doesn't matter because you're Sonic and Shadow but Super Saiyan. What about the first time we grabbed Bowser's tail, lifted him with the might of Zeus and yeeted that turtle lizard thing? Or how in Portal 2 you create a portal on the motherfucking moon? God damn! That's good shit. Final boss battles are freaking cool. Let me know some of your favorites in the comments below. I have to go take a shower.